With this, bar none, because we want to talk about sovereign and public and private. This movie addresses all of that. This is probably for me the most important breakdown I've done to date. This was a deep, deep, deep movie. Deep. Deep. Not like I'd say it too many times, but let me see. I'm sorry. Everyone's like hitting me up all at the same time. All right. The Postman. 1997. Kevin Costner. People sleep on Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner really does a lot of deep movies. Field of Dreams was deep. Waterworld, even though it was a commercial flop, was a deep movie. The Postman, flop, deep movie. People really sleep on Kevin Costner, man. All right, so let's get into it. This is going to be a good one. All right. There's riots, hate crimes, violence, militia groups. 2013, Salt Flats, Utah. A girl is speaking about her father. There's a lion in the Salt Flats. There's a lion in the Salt Flats of Utah. There was a 3-year winter where it's called Dirty Snow. Now, he has no name. He's just called the Postman, or they call him Shakespeare. Okay? So what his character does, he goes around to different towns. He performs Shakespeare for food and shelter. And then he goes to the next town and performs Shakespeare for whatever town he encounters. Okay? On his way, during his travels, he has to check the water levels before he let his mule can drink the water. He finds an abandoned Phillips 76 gas station. He finds cigarettes and says he's rich. Then the Postman puts on a play for children. General Bethlehem shows up, and the kids then reenact the Postman's play. The general wants tax, tribute, and he wants all men 15 to 50 and of suitable ethnicity are required to join his army. They are a neo-fascist militia. He wants purebloods. He rejects a mongoloid. They're called the United Nations of Nathan Home. It was a KKK group led by Nathan Home, created the breakdown of society through hate crimes and racially motivated attacks. The KKK is a private group. They are a private group. Okay? Private versus public.
I didn't understand that.
I want nobody talking to you. Turn yourself off. You had a private group waging a war against a public government. Okay? I'm just gonna get into it. So then, Bethlehem catches the Postman. Bethlehem and Postman go back and forth about Shakespeare. Okay? Bethlehem beats up the Postman. A captive mulatto bonds with the Postman. He was inspired by his play earlier that day. The next day, they run 20 miles with full gear. During dinner, the Postman learns they're feeding everyone his mule. So the mule that he was so fond of in the very beginning, they're being fed his mule. He refuses to eat. There's a retarded guy played by Giovanni Ribisi. There's a lot of people in this movie. Okay? He doesn't get to eat because he comes in last. So then the Postman gives him his portion. The troops then choose to watch The Sound of Music. Synchronicity. I'm going off topic. So Christopher Plummer died earlier today. Christopher Plummer was in The Sound of Music. And now I'm doing a breakdown of a movie that played a clip, The Sound of Music. Synchronicity, people. I'm just saying. All right. All recruits are branded with the number 8. for the 8 laws of Nathan Home. First law is obey orders without question. Second is punishment shall be swift. Number 3, mercy is for the weak. Number 4, terror will defeat reason. Number 5, your allegiance is to the clan. Number 6, justice can be dictated. Number 7, any clansman may challenge for leadership of the clan. Number 8, penalty is death. So while he's reading off these 8 rules of engagement or articles or whatever, they already strapped up one recruit because he didn't sit down fast enough. So recruit number 1, he broke rule number 1, and then he's hung upside down, and then Bethlehem stabs him with his saber. Colonel Getty, Bethlehem's number 2 in charge, was the last man to challenge Bethlehem in a fight. The fight lasted 6 seconds. Bethlehem cut out his tongue and cut off his scrotum, and he's been loyal to Bethlehem ever since. Captain Idaho tells Woody, the mulatto, the general doesn't see it, but I say you got some nigger in you. The postman and then Bethlehem have an audience. Bethlehem says before the fall of civilization, Bethlehem sold copy machines. He was a salesman before all this took place. He says Nathan Home saved him. Bethlehem then orders the Postman Shakespeare book be burned. The postman has a plan to escape. During the trip, the postman is told to go into the bush to kill that very lion from the very beginning of the movie. It killed 2 of their soldiers, and he's only armed with a knife. They send him off with a knife, they go in there and they go kill a lion. The postman finds and returns a dead soldier's body, and then he executes his plan. He falls into the river, off the bridge. They begin to shoot at him. Woody, the mulatto, is sent after the postman along with the retarded guy and Captain Idaho. Okay. As they go down, he goes downstream, he gets out the water, whatever the case, now he's on foot. So the retard confronts the postman first, and before he can let the others know, the postman stabs him and kills him. Gotta do it. Woody then shows up, followed by Captain Idaho. They surround the postman. Woody says, "No harness on my back." Now, in the beginning of the movie, during the play, he's given the last monologue of the Shakespeare speech, and the last part of that speech is in regards to freedom is "no harness on my back." So Woody says, "No harness on my back," then throws a knife at the postman, but it then strikes Captain Idaho in the shoulder. So then Woody then charges Idaho, but Idaho pulls out his .45 and shoots Woody as he falls on top of him. Okay? Woody's dead. This allows the postman to escape. So now while Idaho he gets up and goes looking for the postman, the lion shows up and kills Idaho. And they can all, and General Bethlehem and the troops can all hear him screaming as the lion is like, "Arr, arr," as he's mauling them to death, right? So they think it's all of them, they think they're all dead because they never came back. The postman then finds an old U.S. postal truck with a long dead body inside of it because it's raining and it's cold, and he hops in the vehicle. He takes the postal uniform off the skeleton, finds a lighter and a whiskey flask and an undelivered mail. He begins to read some of the mail, and then he uses some of the mail for a fire. The next day, he buried the dead body. The postman then comes to Pineview. Now, mind you, he's an actor. He's an actor, okay? He shows up to Pineview, saying he's on official business. He tells Sheriff Briscoe he's a representative of the U.S. government authorized by Order 417 of the Restored Congress, established by the Communication Rule of Lowell, Oregon. This whole public versus private thing, you're going to learn today. He reminds Briscoe that tampering with the mail is a federal offense. So if you work for the mail, USPS, this is your movie. This is your movie, okay? He reads the address of Irene March, and then the sheriff stands down. So what happens is the sheriff has a gun pointed at him. He says, "I'm going to give you till 3. So he starts reading off mail, and he reads off Irene March. Irene March is in the town. So the sheriff's like, okay, you might have something here. Let's see how this goes out. The letter. So then they go to the crowd. The crowd parts, and it's a little blind lady. She's like, I'm Irene March. The letter is read to Irene because Irene is blind. Now these people in this movie either a lot of them can't read for whatever reason, fall of civilization. A lot of people cannot read, or a lot of misspellings. Okay, the postman says he's taking new correspondence. The letter was from Irene's sister from Denver 15 years ago. Irene then calls him a godsend, and he cracks a joke about putting dogs on a leash while he's there. That's the old mailman's joke about dogs always attacking mailmen. They didn't get it, but whatever. So the second important piece of all this is the young brother. His name is Ford Lincoln Mercury. He brings his uniform to him clean and pressed. The postman hides his 8 brand. Okay, so Ford Lincoln Mercury, played by Lorenz Tate, is inspired by all this. All right. His name used to be John Stevens, but he changed it at the last minute. The postman then arrives to dinner. The people want to know about the government. They ask, is there a president? He says, yeah, his name is Richard Starkey from Maine. There's a slogan. His slogan is, stuff's getting better every day. And then they ask more about, they ask about the two-party system. He says there are no more parties. He says it's the individual that counts. Somebody asks about Europe. And then a woman asks about the wholeness, because that crew is Nathan's, General Bethlehem's army is called the Wholeness, right? The postman says the government just started. You got to give them time. He says, and they'll be on their own for about 6 to 18 months, all right? And then Irene's daughter says, hey, give the man a break. He's tired. He just came in. Let him eat. So they let him eat. They all say a prayer before they eat their food, all right? So then he meets Abby. She questions him about his health and sexual history. She wants him to impregnate her. Abby introduces her husband, Michael, to him. He's unable to impregnate her, okay? Because when Michael was young, he had a case of the bad mumps when he was 12. They've been trying for 3 years to have a baby. He tells the couple he'll think about it. Blind Irene gives the postman another letter for a sister up north, but she doesn't have an address. She says she has a good feeling about him and that he'll do what's right. He takes the letter. The postman attempts to sneak out of town and steal a horse. An old man points him to the Pineview post office. Ford then asks him about how to become a postman. And then the postman says, well, only another postman can swear in a postman. So then he swears in Lincoln as a postman. They can't read. You know, he uses the USPS slogan, nor rain nor sleet, blah 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 blah, can stop the mail. He uses that creed to swear him in because they can't read. All right. Okay. So then Briscoe, the sheriff, he has doubts about the postman. He tells him, "Yeah, these people don't need dreams, man. They need something real." And then Abby visits him later on that night in his room. She offers herself to him. They have sex. She leaves him a red ribbon. The townsfolk the next day give him a horse, and he takes off. Oh wait a minute. Okay, as he trots off, a little girl sings "America the Beautiful." Briscoe, conflicted, and then he rides up to the postman and says, "Man, are you really who you say you are?" He says, "Well, there's only one way to find out." Then the sheriff gives him a letter. Ford then cleans up the post office. General Bethlehem and the Eights show up to post view. He asks, who's responsible for that flag being raised? Briscoe tries to protect Ford because Ford's like, man, no, fuck them. Bethlehem makes Michael, Abby's husband, set the flag on fire, then set the post office on fire. General Bethlehem says the United States does not exist. It's an abomination. The people pay tribute. Bethlehem wants Abby. Michael tells Bethlehem that's his wife. Bethlehem explains to Michael about the feudal system, lords and vassals. If a vassal got married, it was the lord's right to sleep with that married vassal. Bethlehem wants Michael's blessing. Michael tells him he can't do it. So then Bethlehem says, what made the nation weak were the I can'ts. Bethlehem says he will be the father of a new nation because he can. Bethlehem then draws his saber, then stabs and kills Michael. Abby goes crazy, and the town folks are angry. Briscoe tells Bethlehem about the postman. Ford says the United States government... wait. Ford said... Oh, yes. So then Ford had shouted out, the United States government sent him. So Ford really believes in this, okay? Bethlehem sends 4 patrols in all 4 directions to find the postman. Ford mounts a horse and then a postman outfit, and he takes what mail he can down south. Okay, the postman delivering mail in Benning, Oregon. As an 8 patrol with Bethlehem show up in Benning. There's 2 guards at Benning refuse to open the door. They have a rep for the United States, and they says Bethlehem's army is illegal. So you have a private entity saying a public entity is illegal, and vice versa. Do you understand? Okay? The mayor frantically tries to open the gates for Bethlehem. The postman tells the mayor to negotiate a settlement. The postman begins negotiations with Bethlehem. Bethlehem does not recognize the postman because he's all shaved and clean now. Okay? Doesn't recognize, this is the guy that on the bridge that you argued with Shakespeare about. He doesn't recognize him at all. So then the postman begins to negotiate. Bethlehem doesn't recognize the postman. Bethlehem says he was at the Battle of Georgetown and watched the White House burn to the ground. So he was there in the war. Okay. The postman tells Bethlehem the new capital is based in Minneapolis under Herbert Humphrey at the Metrodome. Bethlehem rejects the offer and orders the troops to fire at the gates and invade the town. Abby plots her escape. The mayor is killed. Abby kills 2 men and hits the general in the arm. The postman gets on a horseback and rescues Abby as they ride out of town. The postman has been shot. Abby retreats with the postman to a safety to a cabin in safety. It's now winter, so now months have gone by, many months. So then Abby finds his 8 brand. Abby tells the postman Michael is dead and holds a blade to his throat. Abby has become frustrated with the postman's apathy because he refuses to walk. He's like, I've been shot. I can't walk. So she has to go out and forage for food and maintain the cabin. Because he's like, I can't walk. I'm shot. Okay. And then he makes something about, well, we don't have any food to eat. So then she goes out and shoots the horse. And she skins the horse, and they eat horse meat. Abby falls into the river while looking for food. The postman then gets up and goes to her rescue, so he can walk. The postman then nurses Abby back to health. Abby then tells the postman she's pregnant. It's Michael's baby, but the postman was just the father body. Make sense? He's just a sperm donor, but in her eyes, it's Michael's baby. Okay. Beth tried to rape Abby, but beat her instead. When the time that she was captured. Okay, spring has come, and then Abby sets the cabin on fire. She says, we can't stay here forever. So then they're on their way. They meet a little girl on a horse. She is carrier number 18 of the U.S. Postal Service. She tells the story of the postman that was told to her from Fort Lincoln Mercury. He's in direct contact with the restored Congress. So he's listening to all this like, what in the hell? Right? Abby and the postman and carrier number 18 go to see Ford. Ford reads a letter from the postman alongside while being alongside President Starkey. So it's a letter saying, hey, it's me, the postman. I'm with the president. Okay? And he's reading this to the letter carriers, the mail carriers. There's a bunch of postmen and postwomen. Okay? They also print anti-propaganda literature. So then he tells them, "Hey, you guys spelled tyranny wrong." But the tyranny thing, I'm gonna come back to that because this is where who's the smartest person between Bethlehem and the postman. Bethlehem was initially bothered by the intelligence of the postman, which is why they went back and forth with quoting Shakespeare quotes. Okay, but I'm gonna get back down to that. Okay, so then the postman is like, he's in a crowd, he's watching all this, and then somebody turns around and he asks a question, and then the postman raises his hand, and everybody looks at him. It's like, oh my God, it's him. So the postman and the Ford have a talk. Ford admits to lying. He didn't want it to end. The postman agrees to stay until President Starkey sends for him. Ford then shows off the mail processing center. They currently have 30 routes, and more postmen are sworn in. He questions a 65-year-old postman. He's a former airborne. Bethlehem then had captured postman number 12, carry number 12. Bethlehem will attack Pineview at dawn because he gave up the info. Like, he's a kid. These are kids. Like, these are young teens and kids delivering the mail. Okay. The postman opens a new postal territory at number 10 in Ellis, Oregon. Back in Postview, Irene is read a response letter from her sister. Briscoe gets a letter from his sister. He thought she was dead. As Abby and the postman share a dance, a postman is shown being shot in the back. Abby walks away from the postman because at this point she's like, I'm cool on you. Thank you for the baby, but I'm good. Okay. Ford then reports that Tony, number 12, never returned because he's dead. Right? Bethlehem is brought back 5 dead postmen. They're teens. He's upset. He says he wanted men. He said they're babies. Okay. Then there's anti-Bethlehem pamphlets. And then this is when he says, oh, they spelled tyranny wrong. So once again, this is the match of the wits between Bethlehem and the postman about who's the smartest person. Their bodies are hung upside down for everyone to see. Postview kills an 8 patrol. The postman blames himself for the postmen and women getting killed and tries to run all the routes himself. But he can't. He can't physically do it. An 8 outpost is attacked and the dead bodies are sent back to Bethlehem. Another postman was held hostage with a message for the postman. Ford was the one who sent the bodies back to Bethlehem because what happened was postman said, just get rid of the bodies. Ford was like, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna send him a message. And he sent dead bodies back to Bethlehem. Ford tells the postman they have to fight back. Briscoe and the others are shot via firing squad. But before being shot, Sheriff Briscoe, he yells, "Ride, postman, ride." All while the postman is watching from the hilltop. The postman then reads a letter from President Starkey. The letter says to disband the post office, burn all uniforms, and the postman is to return back to Maine. Ford questions the validity of the letter. Mind you, they can't read. Postman tells Ford, how much mail can a dead postman carry? Abby tries to talk the postman out of his decision. The postman comes clean about how he became the postman. A mole in the camp pulls out a gun on the postman, saying the general is a great man. The boy gets scared as he pulls the trigger. Ford is caught by Bethlehem. Okay. Abby and the postman ride west. Ford and another postman from California face the firing squad. Bethlehem halts the squad. He realizes he'll be fighting a ghost, so he wants all postmen found and killed everywhere. Okay. Bethlehem then kills the postman from California that stood next to Lincoln, right? So when they first meet, they didn't know each other. He says, hey, you're Ford Lincoln? He's like, yeah. He said, man, I want to shake your hand. They shake hands. He's a mixed kid. He's from California, but the word is spreading now, okay? The postman and Abby make it to Bridge City, and they're followed by 3 former postmen. One of the Bethlehem's men demand the postman. Wait. So they know where they assume the right area, that Bridge City. So one of the 8 soldiers, they go to Bridge City and say, "Hey, we think the postman's here. Send him out." Right? And then the little kid asks, "Well, what's a postman?" So then he gives the little kid a postman, a mail carrier's hat. The mayor then asks if he's the postman. The postman comes clean. He says, "Oh, you're pretty famous." Now the mayor's played by Tom Petty, right? So when he first meets the mayor, he says, "Hey, you're pretty famous," to Tom Petty, right? So then in reverse, when they find out that he's the postman, they say, "Hey, you're pretty famous too," right? So then the postman, Abby tells the postman he has a gift. He gives her the red ribbon from years prior. Abby is afraid the postman will never see his baby. The postman agrees to ride into Postview to turn himself in, right? But then as he rides in, so they show Postview, Postview being under Bethlehem's regime, all right? So then there's an army riding into the Postview city to meet Bethlehem, and there's a flag, and it says the Army of the Restored United States of America. And then there's a snitch, and then and they all ride out, and they're facing almost like the cavalry, and it's led by the postman. So then the one postman who snitched was riding with Bethlehem. He changed his side. He says, "I'm going back over here with the good guys." Okay. So then he said. So then Bethlehem and postman, they come out to meet, to talk, right? So then he says, "Hey man, look, we're both a couple of frauds." Postman wants to settle. He wants peace. Postman then invokes law number 7 of the 8. He then reveals to everybody else his 8 brand, because they thought he was dead. So he's riding in front of the 8s and showing his tattoo, like, "I had the right to challenge for the leadership of the clan." Bethlehem remembers him as Shakespeare. So then they joust horses. They knock each other off their horses. They begin to wrestle. Bethlehem then reaches for a saber. The postman gets the upper hand and chokes Bethlehem out. Ford pulls a pistol on Bethlehem, citing law number 8. The postman declares himself the clan leader. He says law number 1, peace is declared. Ford then changes law number 8 to live and let live. Then Bethlehem draws a pistol while they're not looking, and then is shot and killed by Colonel Getty, his number 2, the guy who cut out his tongue and balls. All right. Then Getty raises his rifle and then lays it on the ground. Okay. Months later. Well, no, actually decades later. It's decades later, and the postman. Months. Months later, postman returns to visit Abby and his daughter. The daughter's name is Hope, and Abby and the postman fall back in love. Okay, the year is now 2043, St. Rose, Oregon. Hope is speaking at a commencement ceremony of her father. Humanity has recovered and thrived. There's a statue of her father, 1973 to 2043. So the statue of the postman is, if you remember the trailer, the part where he rides the horse and he's racing to grab the letter from the little boy. Because what ended up happening was he was running his routes, and the little boy came out the house to give the letter to the postman. And she's like, "Oh, honey, you were too late. We'll send it. We'll get it to him when he comes back." So then the postman hears what happened, and he races towards the little boy. The little boy's, and then the postman, and he grabs the letter, mid-stride with the horse. That is the actual statue. Okay, that moment when he reaches the letter from the little boy. The little boy in the statue is in attendance. He was like, I was the one that gave him that letter. He's a grown man with a family, right? In the scene, that was the postman. Wow.